I know a lot of people out there don't exactly like question period because it seems like it's questions without any answers, but nonetheless, there is an entertainment value, and you have to think of it from a normie perspective. If you're not politically versed and you just happen to click on a video where you see your prime minister is being asked a very simple question and can't answer it and just beats around the bush, over time, mixed with volume, more and more Canadians will be actually aware of our shitty prime minister, because there are, I hate to say it, but there are a lot of people that still support and want to vote for Justin Trudeau, and that's what we're trying to change here. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I want to encourage you all to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. We're on route to 100,000 subscribers here on House of Canada, and as well as remind you that there are some amazing stickers available, linked down in the description or the pinned comment below. This is from a fan favorite question period moment where Pierre Poilievre stood up and said, WTF, where's the funds? So link for that is down in the description or the pinned comment below. And without further ado, let's take a look at Pierre Poilievre literally talk to Justin Trudeau like he's a baby. It's absolutely hilarious. Enjoy the clip.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Is not worth the cost of food after 8 years of the NDP Liberal carbon tax. It's caused food prices to rise 20% in the last 2 years alone. So much for the affordable food they promised when they signed their coalition with the NDP leader. So much so that the Canada Food Bank is now forced to cut in half the number of potatoes that they're giving out. It's too expensive and there's too much demand. Instead of just telling those people who are eating half as much in Canada that things are great, why won't he follow our common sense plan to axe the tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as the member for Regina Louvain recognized yesterday, there is absolutely no data to support any link between our price on pollution and higher grocery prices. There simply is none. On this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we are a government anchored in evidence and data, and we will continue to be there to deliver things like a grocery rebate to Canadians, to put more money back in Canadians' pockets, even as we put a price on pollution with the carbon price rebate, and we will continue to defend Canadians' interests against the cuts proposed by that Conservative.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He wants to know the link between the carbon tax and the food price. Well, I'll help him out. So farmers use something called diesel. It goes in and drying machines.
The way he talks to Trudeau is so funny.
The carbon tax, on which he wants to quadruple the tax. Then the truckers who pick up the food, transport it to the grocery store, pay the carbon tax. Then the grocer pays the carbon tax to power the heat in that big Olympic stadium-size chamber we call a grocery store. If he doesn't get the link, how is he ever going to fix the problem?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well said, man.
The problem with the story that the Leader of the Opposition just told is there's absolutely no data to support it. He is all about political attacks. He is all about inventing reasons to not take action on the fight against climate change because his Conservative Party still doesn't understand that you cannot have a plan for Canadians' future or the future of the economy if you don't have a plan to fight climate change. Not only are we fighting climate change, Mr. Speaker, we're putting more money back in the pockets of Canadians and building the economy of the future.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, speaking of no evidence, we actually filed an order paper question asking for proof that his carbon tax is reducing emissions, and it came back that there was no evidence. For 8 years in government, after years of raising the tax, they have no proof that it reduces emissions at all. But we know it increases food prices, and this is why Canada's food professor said, I'm recommending a pause on the carbon tax for the entire food industry from farm gate to store and restaurants. If the Prime Minister doesn't have the common sense to axe the tax, will he listen to the food professor and cancel his plan to hike it?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canada is actually reducing its emissions faster than our G7 partners, largely because we put a price on pollution. Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition wants to make pollution free again. We do not think that is the right path for Canada. We know that investing in reduction of carbon emissions while putting more money back in Canadians' pockets, switching from home heating oil to heat pumps, moving forward in responsible ways as we're investing in supporting Canadians is the way to build a stronger future, but he proposes ideology, cuts, and fear tactics, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, it's been 8 years since this costly Prime Minister took office, but it was 2 years ago that he signed a deal with the NDP leader where, in the latter, promised that it would bring more affordable food. Since that time, the NDP and Liberals have helped raise food prices by 20%. Their favorite inflationary instrument is the carbon tax.
Yeah.
Now they plan to quadruple the carbon tax on the farmer who produces the food and the trucker who ships the food, and therefore all who buy the food. The Canada's food professor is calling for a cap on the carbon tax. Will the Prime Minister cancel his 23% carbon tax hike for April 1st?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, once again, we heard in Parliamentary Committee yesterday absolutely no evidence, no data to support the Leader of the Opposition's contention that the price on pollution impacts on grocery prices. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, our price on pollution returns 4 times a year more money to 80% of Canadians in the areas where it is in play than it costs them. That's how we can both fight against climate change and put more money in the pockets of Canadians. The Leader of the Opposition is proposing to take away those 4 times a year rebate checks from Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the NDP also promised affordable housing when they sold out their constituents and signed on to a coalition with the Leader of the Liberals. But since that time, the rent is up well over 20% as they fund more bureaucracy to block homes and deficits that drive up interest rates, so much so that Tim Chen, a student in Vancouver, actually needs to commute to university from Calgary. Yes, he has to fly back to Calgary where he can afford the rent under a Conservative government, and then fly over to Vancouver in a commute in order to study. Mr. Speaker,
what?
How crazy is it that you have to commute across?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition likes to talk about the challenges Canadians are facing, and while we're busy solving them, he's proposing nonsensical solutions. Let's talk about the Conservative leader's housing plan. It won't build homes fast enough, it doesn't reach enough cities, and it creates unnecessary bureaucracy. He'll also rip up our housing accelerator agreements, which are unlocking 500,000 new homes, and he'd put the GST back on apartment construction. Housing experts like Mike Moffat say his plan is exceptional weak and a sign that, quote, the Conservatives don't understand the scale of the housing crisis. We'll take no less.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the results speak for themselves. When I was the housing minister, rent was $950. It's now over $2,000.
Yeah.
As the housing minister, the average mortgage payment on a newly purchased home was $1,400. It's now over $3,500. And my common sense plan would require cities permit 15% more home building as a condition of getting federal money, require they build housing around transit stations rather than having empty fields there, and sell off 6,000 federal buildings and thousands of acres of federal land to build. Why won't he build homes instead of building bureaucracy?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The reality is Canadians just can't trust Conservatives and their attacks and their talking points. Why? Because an active paid lobbyist is the one giving them all their advice on how to win their campaign. The reality is, Mr. Speaker,
that's funny. Pierre's going to start name dropping again.
Is once again driving their agenda as they propose cuts to vulnerable Canadians, underinvestments in housing, and no solutions to the very real challenges Canadians Canadians are facing. They're in the pocket of big business, as evidenced by Jenny Byrne's work for Loblaws.
The honourable member from Winnipeg South Centre.
Thanks for watching the video to the very end. If you'd like to subscribe, I've made it very easy. You can do so by clicking right there. If you'd like to watch another House of Commons highlight clip, you can do so by clicking right there. And if you'd like to subscribe to my main channel, Mistersunshinebaby, where it's all Canadian political news, then you can do so by tapping up there. Subscribing is absolutely free. There's a button down below that says subscribe. If you'd like to join and become a member and financially contribute, you could do so as well. Thank you so much for watching this video.